years of insanity. Insanity in research and fascination with the mysteries of what we often call life, or we assume is life.
Right. Challenging gender, challenging sex roles, challenging all those boundaries.
And believing that what people tell me or tell any of us is, in inverted commas, reality. We nicknamed it nonsensus reality instead of consensus reality, that doesn't really hold up very well. Even nowadays, if you look at mathematics and particle physics and quantum theories, the language even reads more like a magical manuscript than it does a scientific tract. And of course, we all know that science is the bastard son of alchemy, and alchemy is a serious, very important part of the magical view of the universe. So, in a way, we're returning in this massive, long, somewhat unnecessary loop where we went through a phase called rational, back to the delirious, the irrational, but far more accurate magical view of things.
Sure.
And that's why we're in a very, very important era, very important time. And that's why we think androgyny is so important, because it ultimately deals with the human species taking initiative in terms of the evolution of the species and its relationship with the planet and other planets and stars, and hopefully other dimensions.
Sure.
How about that?
That's So are we overruling DNA, or are we just a mode for DNA challenge, or is it we're just taking the reins now?
Well, here's how it is. You probably know the basic story, but the people listening who might not. The whole thing really, even during the sample of psychic use in the 80s, when that was still active, we began towards the end discussing the ratios of male and female in terms of different people's personalities, their characters.
Right.
And so, as some of the exercises, we would say that the left-hand side was female and the right was male. So, if somebody was being over-macho or over-testosterone, then we would emphasize things to do with their left, or with softness and so on. And we would very consciously try and redesign the balance between the two ideas of male-female, the stereotypes. But when we met Lady J, it became a much more serious exploration, first triggered by that sensation of having found one's other half.
Sure.
The missing piece of the jigsaw that makes you complete and whole. So it was very much an ultra-loving exploration. We wanted to literally just be absorbed into each other. I actually had a very profound visionary experience. We were at our apartment with Timothy Wiley, who used to work with John Lilly on dolphin intelligence research and an altered state, and some other people. And Lady J and myself were sitting there. We were all talking, and then all of a sudden, she and myself both sat bolt upright, stared at each other, and we said to each other almost at the same time, "Can you see what I see?" And then I said, don't tell me. Write it down, and I'll write down what I'm seeing." So we both wrote down that we could see each other with one body for both our heads.
Wow.
And we had friends there as witnesses that we didn't cheat.
Right.
And that was when we actually really conceived that we were becoming the Pandragine in a more literal way.
Right.
So it was about initially love, then it was, we thought, well, what are we trying to look at? And as you know, we're very deeply influenced by William S. Burroughs and Brian Geisling and their theories of the cut-ups.
Right.
And as we thought about the implications, some of them, we thought, well, Burroughs and Geisling would take their writing, their collages and photos, and they would literally chop them up, reassemble them, and then say that no longer did these new pieces of work that had been created by this random process belong to Burroughs or Geisling. They were the product of this other energy, this other entity that they called the third mind.
Right.
It was a separate intelligence that had some kind of existence and even a gender of its own separate from them.
Right.
So one thing that Burroughs always used to say to me was, where is control located and how do you short-circuit control? In fact, he gave me that as my life task to try and undo that puzzle. So Jay thought what we could do was apply their theories and their techniques on an even deeper level by putting ourselves, our bodies, our personalities, our psychological profiles, our gender expectations from both outside and inside, and cut those up.
Right.
And see what happens. And that would create this third being, which we call the pandragine, the positive androgyne, or if you like, the alchemical hermaphrodite.
Right.
And then as we're looking at that, we're thinking, well, we're right back with magic and alchemy here. You know, that the original perfect divine being